everyone. Welcome to this podcast, um, courtesy with Digital Academy. And my name is Tefa. I'll be your host for today. And with me discussing the issue of self care, mental health, is a clinical psychologist, an assistant psychologist with NHS. She studied at the University of the Montfort, Leicester City. She was born and brought up in London, and then she's going to major in clinical psychology, and she'll be joining us to expound on the idea on how important mental health is and self-care. So welcome once again, Shanley. You're welcome to this podcast for today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for my lovely introduction as well.
I hope
Um,
I did justice.
yeah, you did. You did. There was a few things I actually just wanted to add as well. So yes, I am from originally from London, but I'm now currently living in Antigua within in the Caribbean. So yeah, that's the additional thing. Yeah.
All right. Okay. That's good to know. So let's start this podcast by, let me ask you, what was your motivating factor to, there are a lot of fields out there apart from psychology.
Mm,
And
mm,
I think self-care is one of those aspects that most entrepreneurs really don't look at. They just focus on business, they are all in,
mm,
they, they rarely have personal lives out of it. So what made you go into psychology?
yeah. So what got me into psychology in the first place? I've always been somebody who's been quite interested in people, the mind, the body, and how everything, works together. And I've always been quite a curious person. My dad really was the main person who got me quite interested into psychology because he had his own struggles with his mental health. So when I was quite young, he experienced a stroke, which then really changed his personality and impacted his mental health. And growing up, I was really confused as to like why my father had changed and, what was different, what was going on. And from then going into study psychology, I started to get all of the answers that I've always wanted. I started to understand why there was a change, the parts of the brain that was affected, and all of these kind of things. So that was where my passion grew. And I was like, I just want to help people. I've always had a passion to be able to help people. And I felt that through therapy, through psychology, having an understanding of people, I would be better able to help individuals. Also coming from, a black, being a black woman, black background, I know that from a lot of research that a lot of black people experience mental health problems, but within the institutions, when they go to therapy, there's very little, black professionals there to be able to help them. So I wanted to be there as a representative. So that's really kind of where my passion for like mental health and psychology and studying it and being involved in research began. And then it started to grow. It started to grow into where I kind of am now.
That's really interesting, from your dad, and you decided to move this a step further to enlarge your assistance you gave to embrace the public as a whole. That's really interesting, and it's mind blowing. It's mind boggling
Yeah,
thinking about it.
yeah.
Yeah. So, in your experience, um, from these issues that entrepreneurs get, these mental issues they have.
Mm,
So, what do you think it's the underlying factors, and why is it very common with this set of people, with entrepreneurs
yeah,
having these
yeah.
issues?
So I started working with entrepreneurs maybe about like 6 years ago. And I found again from a lot of research and just from my own experiences how challenging, the entrepreneurship can be. It can be quite challenging, especially when you're starting up, maybe you don't know the right things to do, you don't know where to go, you have this idea, you don't know how it's going to grow, and you have all of these thoughts, all of these challenges. But not only that, within itself, you've also got your personal life. So being able to balance that can be quite a challenge for some people. And for some people, they're not only just, an entrepreneur, they have other roles in their personal life. And then some of them are even working full time. So some people might have it as something that they do alongside what they already do full time. And there's so much research to say that individuals who are entrepreneurs do experience high levels or high numbers of mental health problems or difficulties, whether that be depression, low mood, anxiety, stress, long periods of stress, and then again burnout, and that's because of all the energy, all the time, and all the effort that you have to put in when you are on this journey, on this entrepreneurial journey. And a lot of the time when you are on it, you know, it does sometimes, a mirror does come up for people where they start to see things maybe about themselves that maybe they had put behind them, and it starts to come to the forefront. Um, and then having to work through that, having to maneuver through that can be quite challenging. So a lot of people do struggle, and it can be really stressful. And if we're stressed out for long periods of time, it's going to then have an impact on our mental health in general. And I feel like it's definitely something that is ignored a lot of the time and is only dealt with when we have either hit rock bottom or something huge has happened. But I think my main aim and my main mission is to get people into the habit of doing that beforehand, but again, still supporting you when you are in crisis as well.
Yeah, it sort of leads me to, okay, just yesterday we
Yeah.
had a podcast here. We hosted Dax Harman, is the CEO of an AI generated company. So funny enough, while he was talking, he mentioned this about mental health, self-care, about separating your business from your personal life. That he was
Mm.
so engrossed in his business, he almost lost his life, and he's trying to strike a balance. That you're
Mm.
supposed to separate your life, your personal life, from your business. It shouldn't be the same. And just like we mentioned earlier,
Uh-huh.
it's ignored so many times by young entrepreneurs, especially startups. And this
Yeah.
community is about startups. So that's why we brought you in here to be able to like throw more light on that. So, which leads me to the next question. So, what personal health, mental health tips would you advise for them to incorporate into their daily lives and actually maintain to help reduce this mental state issues that is ongoing?
Yeah. Yeah, so much things. That's the good thing about it, is that there's so many things that we can actually do to really make sure that we're looking after ourselves on our journey, on our entrepreneurial journey, whilst we're running our business or starting our business up. There's loads of things that you can do. But I also wanted to touch on what you was talking about with your other guest that came on, and that balance. And I think I think when it comes down to finding your balance, in order for us to have a good balance, we do need boundaries, and we should aim to separate our business from our personal life. In some cases, that doesn't exist for some people. And I think in that situation, that's absolutely fine. But it's about knowing what things, what things you are going to be boundaried on, and what things you're not going to be. What things are you going to share? What things are you not going to share? So that you can find the balance within that. Um, but moving on to the question that you asked about kind of what things can we do to look after our mental well-being whilst we're running a business, the main thing is, which is really important, is to get into the habit of reflection and having a self-awareness practice. So making sure that we are checking in with ourselves often. So I'm not going to say every day, but as often as you can. We have to try and be like realistic as well. But I say it's important to get into the habit of checking in with yourself, because when we are starting up running a business or anything, we can just be, tunnel vision focused on the goal, and we forget about everything else. We forget about ourselves, we forget about, our loved ones and anything else that we've got going on. So it's really important to check in with yourself, ask yourself, how are you doing? Am I stressed? Am I okay? Do I have tension? Because we often get into the habit of being in autopilot, where we're just going, doing the next task after the next task, not remembering whether we've eaten. We're not being mindful. So it's really important to take time to just check in with yourself before it gets to a point where you really have to step back. because I think most people's fear is really having to step back or step away from their business. For example, if they've burnt out or they're really stressed or they're really down. And to avoid that, we can get into the habit of checking in with ourselves. So I always tell people to stop and pause, and also to journal. So taking time to like journal out and reflect on your day, what's gone well, what hasn't gone well, and also to express gratitude. So thinking about things that you are grateful for, things that you are thankful for, whether it's things in the present, things in your past, or even things that you're looking forward to in the future, whether it's, being grateful for new clients, finding and seeing your website, being grateful for new people who you're networking with, interacting with, things like that. Um, yeah, so that's one thing. Again, keeping physically active is important, making sure that we're eating well, getting enough sleep, and that we're even staying connected with, people, because sometimes entrepreneurship can be quite lonely. So again, reaching out to people in your network, collaborating, connecting, building those relationships, nurturing those relationships. And then again, making sure that you have time for like relaxation, making sure that that's prioritized, and that you also are having fun, right? Because again, it's a journey. So we don't want to, feel like we're punishing ourselves. We want to have time to like enjoy life and enjoy business and not take everything so seriously, so that we avoid that stress and that overwhelm that can come along with it.
Awesome, awesome. Like that's really great. This is basic tip 101. It sounds so basic,
Mm-hmm.
but very powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Really powerful
Mm-hmm.
what you just said. Yeah.
Yeah.
So on a personal note, let me ask you, working with other startup businesses on how to incorporate this mental health practices into your life. So what are the challenges you could point to that you faced personally as a business owner as well? What are the
Mm-hmm.
challenges you faced, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah. So, are you talking about kind of just self care or in business as well, or both?
Both, but
Okay.
self-care, business-wise, what are the challenges you faced
Okay.
and how you overcome
Yeah.
them?
Um.
Mentally, especially, how you
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
bring your
Yeah.
mental state to, yeah.
So, um, it mainly, I would say, one of the challenges that I faced was burnout. So, before even starting the business, and actually at the beginning of the business, because I was somebody who was just so passionate, so hardworking, still am. I wanted to just go full in. And at the time, I really didn't have any scope or any awareness about how important I was during that in process. So it was just go, 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 go. Yes, 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 yes. And I burnt out. And I had burnt out before, but I was like, this is not, this doesn't feel good, and this is not something that I want to continue doing. So I knew that there had to be a change. So I really had to change my approach in terms of how I was going about the business. And then I needed to get support. So I started to seek support from friends who were doing had different businesses, and had and who were able to support me in different ways. So I started off by running in-person workshops and events. Even when it came down to like my subscription boxes, I needed support and help with um, getting items like delivered and all of those kind of things. So I just took a lot of things off of my plate and got into the mindset of, understanding that I am important, that I am worthy of rest, and that I am allowed to be supported. So just because it's my business doesn't mean I have to be doing everything. So really stepping more into that CEO um, position rather than just trying to do and be everything. So that was the first thing that helped me to avoid burnout. And that was one thing that I really did struggle with. Anytime that I notice I'm feeling overwhelmed, I check in with myself and just think, okay, is there any other way that I can be supported? But also another thing is there any way that I can allow this to be easier for me? I think that's really important, because I think it doesn't have to be hard. It can be challenging, but things in business, there's lots of things out there to support you, whether it be AI, whether it be a virtual assistant, what have you. There are people and things out there to support you. So how can you make it easier, especially if you are dealing with anything that's maybe challenging, or you've got to a challenging point within your business. So managing my stress and burnout was a very important thing for me, and that was one of the main challenges. Another challenge, I wouldn't say it was a challenge, but it was something that was there, but I was actively working on it. And I think sometimes it's just that, maybe sometimes having that fear. I know that in the beginning, you can feel like, what am I doing? Is everything going to work? Is this going to be successful? All of those kind of things. So sometimes, you might experience having like limiting beliefs that, are not supportive of you and where you're going. And I was very.
We will be back shortly with your episode. Right now, let's hear a quick word from today's episode sponsor.
Are you looking for a simple way to start making sales? Then you'll want to check out our coaching program, Easy Sales Blueprint. Finally, an easy way to sell your program or service. Discover the simple steps to creating a lucrative coaching or consulting business. The Easy Sales Blueprint gives you a step-by-step method to easily make more sales without spending all day on social media, cold outreach, and hitting the door to try a good old-fashioned door-to-door sales system. Apply today by heading to tiny.cc/getmoresales to find out how we can help you achieve online sales success. Entrepreneurship can be a lonely road to travel despite choosing a path that allows you to build wealth and make a real impact. It often feels like you are on this journey all by yourself. The desire to work from anywhere is fantastic, but you also yearn for a community of like-minded. You crave the chance to exchange ideas, learn from others facing similar challenges, collaborate and forge new connections in the business world. Your friends and family may love and support you, but they don't truly understand what you're going through. They are content with their 9-to-5 jobs, leaving you with no one to talk to about your entrepreneurial dreams. If only there were a community of fellow entrepreneurs, a place where you could find advice and support from those who truly get it. Imagine this, an oasis for entrepreneurs where you can quench your thirst for connection and fuel your ambition to succeed. Business Grid Insider is the community you've been waiting for. It's designed exclusively for entrepreneurs, founders, consultants, and freelancers like yourself. Here you can find a tribe of like-minded individuals ready to uplift, inspire, and help you overcome the challenges that come with building your empire. Expand your business network and explore new partnerships and collaboration opportunities. Enjoy exclusive resources, webinars, and workshops designed to enhance your entrepreneurial skills. Join Business Grid Insider today and unlock a world of support, knowledge, and opportunities to propel your entrepreneurial success to new heights. Head to tiny.cc/businessgridinsider. Are you tired of living paycheck to paycheck? Do you dream of financial freedom? Are you tired of the rat race and would like more time with your loved one and friends, making memories that will last you a lifetime? You may want to download Building a 20 Million Portfolio, How I Created Financial Freedom by Aurelian Amaka, a successful entrepreneur, founder of System.io, and author. So why not give it a try? Download Aurelian's book now and start building your own path to financial freedom by heading to tiny.cc/freedomb.
Active with that, I knew it was something that could and would creep up. So I really engrossed myself in like lots of books, in different business communities, making sure that I was like around other business owners so that I knew that I wasn't alone, sharing any of my difficulties. And then working on my mindset was really important. So I dedicated like a whole day to my mindset, which is typically my mindset Mondays, where I, look at any limiting beliefs that I might have if they creep up and actually challenge them. Again, listening to podcasts, educating myself, things like that. So doing anything that's really going to help me to master my mindset, because having a peace of mind and having a really good mindset is what's going to really help you in the long run on this journey as well. And that's also another thing that can also contribute to, our mental health and our well-being. So if we are having loads of negative thoughts, which as humans, we are naturally prone to do, think of the worst case scenario and things like that, right? If you allow that to continue to happen, it will impact, how you're feeling. It will impact what you do. It is going to lead to you procrastinating and putting things off. It will lead to you speaking negatively to yourself, and all of these kind of things that are not going to be helpful in moving the needle forward or moving you forward and helping you to grow within your business as well, as a leader and as a business owner. So that was something that was really pivotal for me. So really making sure that I was looking after my mindset as well as my mental well-being. So again, having a routine, like a self-care routine, and allowing myself to be supported, I think is very, very important. And staying close knit with other people who are in different areas within business, but business owners, just so that you don't feel alone and that you can learn and that you can, bounce things off of, So I think that was really something that those were some of the challenges: burnout, stress, mindset. But I think how I overcome was through action, just still taking action regardless. And there's actually one book that helped me quite a lot in my journey, which is it's by Susan Jeffers. It's called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. Oh my, that book's everything. So definitely a top recommendation from me.
That's awesome. That's great. So
Yeah.
yeah. So how do you advise for someone seeking mental health care?
Mm.
Of course there will be ups and downs when you're going through these processes. So how do you advise someone who is on that process to maintain a mental resilience during that process? Because it's not a flat line. Of course
Mm-hmm.
you go up and down. So how do you maintain that kind of resilience in that process?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we are going to always experience ebbs and flows in life and in business, right? So one thing that I always vouch for, obviously I've spoken about having a really good sustainable self-care routine, one that you're able to adapt when you're experiencing any change or whatever it may be, but also seeking professional help if you need it, like therapy. So making sure that you are able to kind of seek help. There are lots of places that provide free therapy or sometimes paid therapy. With me myself, I have paid therapy, and I think it's something that I just have as a standard for myself to make sure that I'm looking after myself. I know that within the American culture, it's like standard. You always hear people talking about having a therapist, and it is very healthy, I think, to engage in therapy and talk to somebody. So therapy or like counseling, being able to talk about anything that you're experiencing, anything that you're feeling. I think that's great practice, especially if you are running a business, right? Because there's so much stuff that you're holding, and it's like really not great if you are doing that all by yourself. I'm sorry. And also within that, I'm not going to also forget like God as well, because I think when we are going through difficult times, there might not be people around you that you're able to speak to. But I think that if you do believe in God, or anything like that, then talking to God and asking for him to be able to support you, with whatever it might be that you're experiencing at that time, and just handing that over to him. Yeah, because he's able to do some wonders too.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
Hmm.
So would you? I know definitely there exists a relationship between your mental health and
Hmm.
leadership, being in the position of
Yeah,
leadership and mental
yeah,
health. Can you just throw how they are intertwined both?
yeah. I think ultimately, when you are in a leadership position, you part of being a leader is to, one, obviously be a good role model, make decisions and all of those kind of things. And obviously because you are in that space or in that position, there can be a lot of pressure that you may experience. But part of your leadership skill is to be able to take responsibility as well. And taking responsibility for, and making decisions is a huge thing, right? But within that, it's your responsibility to be also looking after your mental health as well at the same time. But because of all of that pressure that, you will experience being in that leadership position, having to make decisions. These may be things that, may be unexpected, decisions about projects in the future and all of those kind of things. It can be really anxiety provoking. It can be really stressful. So that's where the link is going to be. But within that, it is your responsibility. So you do have to take responsibility and you do have to take ownership for yourself within that. So if your mental health is not at its best, you're not going to be doing your best. And it's really that simple. So it doesn't mean anything about you. Just naturally, your mental health can go from good to bad, depending on what you're experiencing, depending on your circumstance. So it's your responsibility, I say, to do your best to prioritize looking after your mental health, because it's literally majority of what we're doing. When you're being a leader, when you're running your business, it's all in your mind. It's all to do with your mind, really, because you're creating from there, you're making decisions from there, you're planning from there, all of these kind of things. So why would you not be looking after it? It's so needed. It's just like, if you need your body to physically go and walk somewhere, you want to be looking after your body as well, so that it can do what it's supposed to do at its best. So I always say, when you rest, you're able to do your best. And that is, a motto that I really live by as well.
Awesome, that's great. It's great insight there, because it's really overlooked, like we established earlier. Your decisions come from the mind. You're planning from the mind. It's all in the mind, and what better to do than to take care of where these important decisions come from? And if you don't take care of your mind, I guess you make poor decisions as well, which leads
Yeah.
to most business crumbling and even mental health issues developing. So, with what you've said a lot. You've really said a lot, and it's been insightful and educational. So, additionally, do you have any additional materials where we could look you up, like maybe podcasts, books, or something that could help?
Yeah, so yeah, I have quite a few things, but I have my own podcast as well, which is the Good to Me podcast. Um, so that's there, and that's available, and I share loads of self-care tips for entrepreneurs, for life and in business, things on, managing your sleep, creating a helpful routine, setting boundaries, being compassionate to yourself. But I also have a really helpful, I would say, guide that I've put together just to help you to be able to identify what your self-care needs are and to create a really helpful self-care routine, so you can go through and audit yourself and your mental well-being. And then it gives you kind of some tips and steps to be able to kind of build that out for yourself, so that you can better start taking care of yourself. So I have a self-care audit and my own podcast as well. And then from there, you'll be able to find so much more of me in lots of different places. I'm all over the internet.
And your website, if you may, sure.
Yes,
So,
yes.
listeners who
So,
want to know what website they could reach you on.
yeah. So if you want to head over to the website, that is www.goodtome, so GOODTOMEUK.com.
Yeah, that reminds me. I was supposed to add that in your introduction. It found that good to me.
Good
It's a
to
good thing you did mention
me.
this and we were able to do it after all. So, let me ask. So concerning mindfulness, being mindful as for an entrepreneur. So, and of course, the life of an entrepreneur is very busy. It's a very busy one at that.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
how do you incorporate mindfulness and meditation in your busy schedule? How do you incorporate this?
That is such a great question. It can be challenging, but mindfulness is something that you have to really be quite intentional about. So it's about firstly setting the intention and making the decision to start to prioritize mindfulness and meditation into your schedule. So that's the first thing. I always say it's really helpful to, as soon as you wake up, like once you part of your routine, once you maybe say your prayers and express your gratitude, you can then think about, what is it that I want to do to be mindful today? So what is going to be my mindful moment? So, you can then say, maybe at lunch today, I'm going to take some time and just be mindful. I'm going to turn off everything and maybe just take a moment to listen or take a moment to focus on my breath. And the same with meditation as well. It doesn't have to be something that you do for 30 minutes to an hour. Some people do that, and that's absolutely great, but you can do it for 2 minutes or even 5 minutes, just taking some time to be intentional about the breath that we're taking. Again, this is going to help you to be back in the present moment. When we're busy, we're just going. We're not thinking about what's happening. We're just looking at our calendar. Next. Where there, in order for us to perform and also help our nervous system, regulate our nervous system to avoid being stressed out, becoming overwhelmed, we want to take moments to pause, to be in the present moment. And something that I always, there's a really helpful acronym that I tend to use, and it's called STOP. So STOP. So the S stands for obviously just stopping and pausing for a moment. Then the T is to take a breath. So you want to take a few breaths in, deep breaths. And when we're breathing, to be able to breathe properly, we need to be doing diaphragmatic breathing. So we're breathing in through our nose, filling up our stomach, and then we're slowly breathing out through our mouth. That's the right way. So taking some time to just take a deep breath, and then we're observing. So we're getting a chance to actually check in with ourselves and observe the thoughts that we might be experiencing, how we may be feeling physically. You might notice tension in your body or whatever it may be, and the experiences that you might be having as well. So it's just important to be mindful. And when we're observing, we're not judging. We're not judging ourselves and saying, "Oh, look, you're tense because of this." No, it's, "Oh, I'm tense. I must have a lot going on. I'm thinking this. Is that really helpful?" Okay, so we're being more kind to ourselves than critical. And then once we've done that, we proceed. So you're just taking moments like that throughout the day, every now and again, to just be mindful. And I think that's a great way to do that. And putting it into your calendar, just scheduling it into your calendar like you would any other appointment, and show up like it's your job, show up like it's your doctor's appointment, but you're showing up for yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a sound bite for the day. Mindfulness over being critical. So you
Mm-hmm.
just have, yeah, that's great. That's great. So when, from your perspective, when would you think is the right time for someone to seek help, and what resources do you have available
Mm-hmm.
that they could access?
Yeah. So the right time is, there's no like right or wrong time, but it's once you deem that, there's, if you've noticed a change. I think that's a really helpful one, is like when you've noticed a change in yourself and how you're showing up and how you're performing, maybe how you're even thinking. If you're struggling to kind of do things, you've been stressed, once you notice that, that is a good time to start seeking some support. It's like better late than never. So trying to do it as early as possible, I think, is good. And that's why I always encourage checking in with yourself. And then the support that I provide, I have, like coaching, so one-to-one sessions and one-off sessions where you can kind of pop in and we can talk about whatever it is that you might be experiencing and just work through that together. So the way that I work is, obviously I have a coaching style, but I also incorporate a lot of like my therapy background into the work that I do, because it's necessary. So it's dependent on what you're experiencing. That is, what we would work on. That's what we would tackle. But if not, I have like a longer form program where we work together for like 3 to 6 months, and we really just hone in and work on, the basics of self-care. So things like self-awareness, self-compassion, reflection, energy and time management, how to look after your well-being, like everything in all, managing your stress, your anxiety, low mood, all of that. And we look at incorporating more self-care into your life and your business so that you can find the right balance for yourself. So that's what we would do. And we take our time because I like to give people a lot of space and grace for us to learn, because part of the journey of self-care, part of looking after yourself, you are learning so much more about yourself within this, and you need to give yourself time in order for you to consolidate a lot of the habits that you're going to be learning and introducing.
Well, it's about learning the right habits and incorporating them
Mm,
into your life. And oh, it's really, really insightful. Once again, it's Shanley Lewis. She's the CEO of Good Time. She mentioned that you could check that out, and she also
mm,
dropped her website. You could look it up for self care and all that. So, like I mentioned earlier, it's a community we host for startup businesses. So, and this is one important part we felt. They needed more light on, because like I mentioned earlier, it's been neglected by so many business owners. They just focus, just like you mentioned, is the tunnel vision. Once they're in there, they're in the zone, and
mm,
they really don't care about how the mind functions. And you need to take care of that mind that you used to work, where those ideas come from. You need to take care of it. It's really important. So on this note, I'll ask you, so what would you be your advice for anyone out there? Like, what would you advise anyone seeking mental help, self
mm,
care? What would you advise, and how would they go
mm,
about it? And how do you
mm,
maintain a good mental self care?
mm. So I think how, my advice that I would give is to remember that you are priority, that you are important within all of this. If there's no you, there's no business. So remember that you can't pour from an empty cup. So you need to do your best to fill up that cup as often as possible, and make sure that you have a cup that's overflowing. Right? It's not selfish; it's self-full. And I think once you start to prioritize your self care and prioritize your mental well being, I think a lot of things will start to fall in place. Um, how would you go about seeking help? Was that what it was?
Yeah,
The next
sustaining.
part? Sustaining, yeah. So
Yeah.
how would you go about that? It would be making sure that you are checking in with yourself on a regular basis, making sure that you are following a really good self-care routine that fits and meets and aligns with the best version of yourself, and it also meets your needs as well as the things that you desire, so the things that you also want to do. um yeah, so you maintain that by always making sure that you're checking in with yourself. You're checking in to see if things are working, things are not working. It's really a process. And always going with what feels good to you. You know, are you doing things that are good for you? And with the decisions that you're making and the choices that you're making, is it good for you and good to you? And I think that would always guide you and lead you into the right direction.
Well, there we have it. She's spoken, and she's a professional in the field, a clinical psychologist in the making, an assistant psychologist with the NHS. She's certified. So I think this is a hack. This advice, it comes for free. You've heard her, so look her up if you want more or you want to hear from her. Thank you so much, Shanley, for taking the time to be with us and to
My
share
pleasure.
your vast experience with us. We're grateful to have you and would love to have you again. So, on this note, I would say bye bye